Welcome to the Flymen Fishing Show, where we talk fly fishing, fly tying, and everything in between. I'm your host, Scotty Davis. Good morning. Happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome back to the show. Today, we have a special guest for us, one of the founders of Pig Farm Inc., hell of a bamboo rod builder and just an all-around wonderful misfit, Mr. Matt Schliske. Good morning. How are you?
Doing good, man. Good to be here. Thanks
Nice.
for having me.
Heck yeah, man. So people that aren't familiar with Pig Farm, I mean, I've known about it for years, but it's still kind of hard to grasp. Why don't you
it's an interesting business model.
Try to enlighten everybody if you can. What exactly started Pig Farm? What is Pig Farm?
Yeah, it's you're right. I mean, I haven't been involved since day one, and it's still kind of difficult for me to explain to people because it's really more of a concept than like any kind of a business or anything. And you know, we don't really sell anything or make money off anything. The reason why we started our whole motivation was to basically just get more folks into fly fishing, you know, and different kinds of folks too that are maybe normally wouldn't be introduced to such a cool outdoor thing. You know, they maybe have seen it on TV or in the movies or something like that, but a lot of the folks that we're trying to engage are maybe might not find fly fishing outside of us, like going out and just doing weird stuff and interesting stuff. We started doing these iron fly tying nights pretty early on, and we still do those. We do them all over the place, and usually we do it like in a bar or somewhere that is still open to the public. It's not like in a, you know, fly shop after hours or something. It's actually engaging with the public, you know, and people come over and check out what you're doing with all this fly tying stuff scattered around and like, oh, what are you guys up to? And it's like, oh, we're tying flies, you know, sit down, check it out. And we'll show you how to do it. And then we started doing little competitions, you know, trying to get as many people who had never tied a fly before to tie their first fly at these events. And then, you know, we told them, hey, if you go out and catch a fish on this fly that you tied, we'll give you a free pair of Costa sunglasses or whatever, you know. So just trying to get people engaged and involved in what we're doing, you know, just in the fly fishing world. It's just, we feel like a lot of us that started Pig Farm it was me and Jay Johnson and a couple of my friends from Colorado, Mark Brown and Chip Guthrie. And we had gotten so much in our lives out of fly fishing, you know, it's enriched our lives so much that we just kind of wanted to give back and give that to other people and let other people experience what, you know, we enjoy doing. So yeah, and it works, man. Those events are super popular and a lot of fun, and people always have a good time, even if you're like old, crusty, jaded, you know, fly fishing guide that's been doing it for decades. They come and they're like, oh, this is like the coolest thing I've done all year, you know?
Yeah.
So
I'm lucky enough to go to a few of them, and some of the little events, obviously between the drinking and the shots, were like blindfolded woolly boogers or
right, yeah.
left-handed tying, or like you said, the best one is to take somebody who's never tied a fly before and to walk them through it without touching anything, just with your words, to try to like walk them through it. And
yeah,
some of those, like you said, some of those ugly flies absolutely work. So
yeah, totally.
It's cool to see you. And one of the Pig Farm slogans, like you were saying, how it's done, fly fishing has done so much for you guys. One of y'all's slogans that you always tag is "Fly fishing saves lives."
Yeah,
and I think that resonates with a lot of people. Most of
it
us
does,
probably.
absolutely. I mean, I think last time I checked, there's like 40,000 photos on Instagram tagged with that, and that's you know, something we started, I don't know, 9 years ago or whatever when we started Pig Farm. And yeah, it's really taken off. People, you know, can connect with that. And we've also gathered a bunch of stories from folks like, you know, how has fly fishing changed your life, or how did it save your life? And it's just cool hearing all the feedback from all the different folks that just get a kick out of what we're doing, because it's something different. You know, it's not just your typical kind of outdoorsy type stuff. One of the early things we were doing just to get eyeballs on, the pig farm was we were doing these videos of finding bad tattoos, and we'd go on Craigslist and like try and find the worst tattoos we could find. And then we'd get them laser removed from people that didn't like them. And then we'd take their bad tattoos and like tattoo them on us with a $50 tattoo machine we got on eBay. And we know nothing about tattoos. So
you're right. That's a horrible business model.
Really, really bad idea. Don't recommend it, but it was fun and we had a good time with it. I ended up with a bunch of bad tattoos. So, it's something.
So that's you do have some horrible tattoos, one of which I was lucky enough to give you. But that one on your right arm, that's actually the one that started the whole thing, right?
Yeah, the Born to Be Free. So that was our first tattoo removal. And then you can see your handiwork there above it, Scotty, maybe the little mayfly.
Still there.
So we found this dude in Fort Collins, Colorado, that got this tattoo stick and poke from his friend's girlfriend when he was like 13. And they had like this cool design all drawn up, and then it just turned out horrible. And he hated it his whole life. He was like, in his late 40s when we ran into him, and we got it removed for him. And he was just like so thankful. And then we took that bad tattoo and put it on us. And we had never had tattoos before. So it was, kind of a weird, scary thing, but it was pretty fun. We had a good time with it, and we got a lot of good feedback with it. And then we started doing like bad tattoos at some of our events. There was one bar in Jackson Hole, the $1 Million Cowboy Bar, that actually let us tattoo in the bar while they were open, which was pretty bitchin' during an iron fly. So we got to give one of the bus boys there a $1 Million Cowboy Bar tattoo on his lip. It's pretty
Lord. Yeah. Bus boy for life now.
Totally.
That's wild. So those events are still going on. Y'all do some river cleanups too. Those have been pretty popular.
Totally. We've got the Pig Farm Inc. Gets Trashed event that we do. That's kind of it's basically just a river cleanup, but it's also kind of a fishing competition where you get awarded points for getting people who've never caught a fish to catch fish while you're cleaning up the river. So it's just a good way to introduce new folks to fly fishing and clean up the river and your resource, and kind of give back. And God, we've pulled thousands of tires out of various rivers across the country, and just pick up loads of trash. So that's a really cool thing that we're doing too. And it has been trickier, the past year with the lockdown and everything, being able to do events and whatnot. But as things start, opening back up, we'll probably get more into that. But we're still doing, river cleanups here and there. Being able to do all that stuff outside is still, relatively safe and whatever. So yeah, that's kind of the whole motivation behind the pig farm, is just get new folks into fly fishing, kind of show a different side of fly fishing, and, and then get people to just get outside and also do positive things like cleaning up their river and stuff. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, we've been working with the TU and Costa Five Rivers organization with a lot of the colleges around the country. And so we've helped kind of kick off like little fly fishing clubs in some of the colleges and whatnot. And, these kids that get into it are just so stoked on it and so appreciative, and just, they might not have found it otherwise. So.
Right. Well, that's a lot to take in. I'm still reeling over the Sasquatch tattoo, even though I've seen it a bunch. So normally you don't think of famous bamboo makers with Sasquatch tattoos and dick chickens riding skateboards, but
right.
Here we are.
So
how did the bamboo thing kind of start?
Let's see. Well, when I kind of first got into fly fishing, I had a couple of buddies in high school that were really into it, and went to New Zealand after we graduated high school for like a year, as long as they could, just to bum around and fly fish and whatever. And those guys kind of got me into it. And when I went out and caught my first trout on a fly with one of those buddies, he was fishing a bamboo rod and was just like, dude, I got this rod from my neighbor. He got it at a garage sale or something, but it's really cool, and bamboo is like the way to go. It's got a totally different feel. And so it just like kind of planted the seed in my head, and I used to, and I guess I still do, just like really like old stuff and like going to antique stores and estate sales and stuff like that. So I was able to come across a couple of old bamboo rods that I picked up, and they were junk, but I still thought it was cool. And then got a couple of good Phillipson rods that were made back in the day in Denver from a buddy of mine. They were his grandfather's. And so I kind of got to experience what a good bamboo fly rod is. And then it just kind of snowballed from there. I had one buddy that had made a handful of rods, and he was like, yeah, I probably won't ever do this again. It's a lot of work. And so he let me borrow his forms and his, some of his tools and materials. And I was like, well, I'm just going to, make one and see how it turns out. And I made one, and it was really bad. And I was like, well, I can make one better than this. So, kept making them until I came up with one I was happy with. And then, had started having friends that were like, oh man, I want one. Will you make me one? And so I started making them for folks. And then next thing I know, I'm cranking out, 40 rods a year or whatever, and just making them as much as I can. I've kind of backed off on that the last few years, just because I've been moving around a lot, and it's hard to, build rods without a dedicated shop set up and whatever. But I'm planning on moving back to Wyoming for the summer and kind of setting up base there. So hopefully I'll land in a spot that has a good space where I can set up a shop and get back into the rods a little bit.
Yeah. Most people that I know that have kind of started off building bamboo were taking some old famous taper and copying that.
Right.
What I know about the stuff that you did is you actually made a computer program to show what taper would do what. And you said you made a lot of kind of crappy rods before you figured out what was what.
Yeah. And I didn't write the computer program, but there is a computer program out there for rod builders that kind of will show you like a stress curve of what the how the rod's going to bend under load when it's loaded for casting. And so it'll show you basically the action of the rod, if it's going to be a faster action or slower action or parabolic action or whatever. So then I just kind of found some older tapers that I liked, and then just kind of modified them from there, and came up with basically, I mean, they're my own tapers or whatever, but it's just kind of a modified, I had to start somewhere. You start with the classics that you like, and then just kind of tweak them from there. But yeah, I came up with, I got to the point where I was more comfortable designing my own tapers than, just rebuilding other old dead guys tapers, and that's, that became a big joy for me too, is just like seeing what I could create, on paper and on the computer, and then making it into a real rod that you're fishing, and seeing like what works and what doesn't, and just the whole learning process,
Yeah. So do you still fish a lot of bamboo when you're out west?
Yeah. Not in the salt so much, mainly just because most of my saltwater rods I've
got broken in a car door,
or broken in the car door at the boat. So, but yeah, when I'm fishing out west, I always have a few bamboo rods with me, and 3-weight, 4-weight, 5-weight, 6-weight. Yeah. If I know I'm going to be fishing dry flies, I'm going to be fishing a bamboo rod more than likely.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So when I was lucky enough to meet you, I guess it was the fly fishing film tour. You were a roadie for that, rolling around town.
And
then
yeah, was lucky enough to kind of, meet those guys early on, the dudes that started the fly fishing film tour, Thad and Jay and Chris and Brian and those guys. And so I went out on the road with Jay when they were kind of, transitioning into what ended up being the new owners. And I ended up doing the road tour with those guys. I don't know, 5 or 6 seasons probably. So that's how I was able to come to Charleston for the first time, was on the film tour, and, went out fishing with you and got to hang out at the fly shop and meet all the folks around town, and just couldn't quit thinking about the place once I left, and so when winter rolled around one season, guiding out in Wyoming, I was like, man, I got to get out of the snow and down to Charleston. And here I am, 7 years later. I mean, I've bounced in and out a little bit, but it's kind of like my second home, winter home, southern home. It feels good down here. I love it. It's there's definitely a lot I'm gonna miss about Charleston when I'm not here.
Yeah, you'll be back. Everybody comes back.
I'll be back. Yeah.
So tell me about, obviously you grew up out west and then came down here and put your roots down. How was it adjusting to the saltwater?
Man, I've always kind of loved the saltwater, actually, because I was introduced to saltwater fly fishing pretty early on in my fly fishing career. My ex-brother-in-law has guided for Florida Keys Outfitters for a long time. And so I was able to go down to the Keys and hang out with him, and he'd take me out fishing. We'd go catch, tarpon and bonefish and snook and try and catch permit and fail and, all that stuff. And it was just like, oh, this is great. I'd much rather be doing this all winter long than braving the cold and snow and whatever. So it was an easy transition for me. I love it, just the challenge of it and how different it is from dry fly fishing for trout in the mountains. And it's just so wild out on the ocean, it's a whole nother world. So for me, it's just an easy call. I love doing it, but there is something about the mountains that always kind of calls me back in the winter or in the summertime. I just can't quit thinking about those rising trout.
Yeah, I've noticed that about springtime. You're like, well, I might be taking off for the summer.
Start getting pretty itchy.
Yeah. So you're planning, when you go back out, you're going to start guiding as soon as you get there, right?
Yeah. Middle of June, I'll kick off the guide season, and, guide till, I don't know, middle of October or whenever it kind of peters out.
If somebody wanted to go fish with you, who would they contact?
They could contact me directly. You could find me on Instagram, or I guide for Snake River Angler in Jackson, Wyoming, so you could always just contact the shop too and tell them you want to get on the books with me. And all that. Yeah, so that's the outfit that I guide for out there during the summertime, and I think I've been with those guys for 3 or 4 seasons now. And it's awesome. I love it out there, man. There's something about that little corner of Wyoming that just keeps drawing me back.
Yeah. What's your favorite type of clients to take?
Oh man, we get all kinds. Really my favorite are just dudes that know how to fish. So I'm not teaching all day, and I don't mind that. I like teaching, and that's one of the greatest things about being a guide, I think, is seeing that spark in someone, when they catch their first fish or they make their first good presentation and hook set or whatever it is, just those little victories. But, so my ideal client is someone who already knows how to fish, already knows how to set the hook, and can get it done. And then it becomes really fun, because then you can target the big dudes that people that aren't so experienced can't get their fly to and can't get it done. You know, the bigger fish just are a lot more difficult. So when you have someone who can fish, then you have a better chance of like just having a better day on the water. You know?
Yeah. And are they wade trips or your drift boats?
Mostly from the boat, drift boat. Yeah. I've got a little clack crab headhunter skiff that, you know, I row, and it's mostly on the Snake River. But we fish some other spots too. We fish on the Green and the New Fork, and you know, we do a bunch of wade trips. I'll do some wade trips in I wouldn't say a bunch, but I do a handful of wade trips each year, like up in Yellowstone or outside of Grand Teton National Park and on Flat Creek, or you know, some of the other creeks around that we have permits for. So yeah, and I love, you know, I'll tell them I'll take every wade trip that you can give me, because I love doing that too. It's nice to switch it up, get off the boat every now and then. You know?
Yeah. What I thought was interesting about you, Matt, was a couple of years ago when you were guiding out there, you just camped in the park. You're like, yeah, I'm not going to run a house. I'm just going to camp all summer in the park. And I was extremely jealous of that. The fishing's one thing, but just being able to be in nature for a whole summer, just kind of reconnect. And then COVID, you went back out there, and I remember you telling me it was a little bit different story.
It was, man. The campgrounds were packed full. It was nuts last summer, man. It was like everyone wanted to get out of their house and go into the woods. So, you know, I've got a remote camp spot out in the forest where, you know, it's not a developed campground or anything. And usually there's no one around. You might get a couple folks on the weekend, but last year it was just packed, man. I was just surrounded with people. I got a tent, you know, snuck back in the trees. And then I come back from guiding one day back to camp, and like I'm surrounded. My tent is just surrounded with other tents and cars and people. And it was insane, man. Yeah. So I'm hoping it's not a repeat of that this year, because it is pretty cool to be able to camp for like 2 or 3 months just out in the woods, you know, doing your thing, and then take people fishing every day. So
yeah, I'm extremely jealous. Yeah, hopefully this year it'll be back to normal. People get their asses back in the office and
right. Yeah.
Relinquish a little bit of the land back.
It made for a great guiding season. We, you know, really didn't know what to expect at the beginning of the year. You know, in June, it was like, well, you know, we'll just see how it goes, see if people are still wanting to come fishing. And then it was like the busiest summer on record. You know, I couldn't get a day off if I wanted. So it's, it was interesting. And I have a feeling it's going to be the same thing this year. Really, people they want to get outside. You know, they want to go somewhere wild in the mountains. They want to camp. They want to go fishing. You know, and I can't blame them. So
I can't either.
Yeah.
Well, sweet. What's your plans for the rest of the day?
Packing boxes for Flymen.
Yeah.
Sending out orders.
Yep. Well, sweet. Yeah, Matt's been working for us here for about 2 years at Flymen, operations manager until he leaves. So
it's been good, man. Yeah.
Been fun.
A lot of flies going out the door.
Yeah, for sure. Well, cool. I'll let you get back to it, and we will talk here soon.
Yeah.
All right, man. Good to see you.
Cheers. Good seeing you too. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir.